What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review for Sony Pictures buddy cop action comedy, Bad Boys Ride or Die. And just so you guys know, this video will contain some mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten to the theaters to see this movie yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. Bad Boys Ride or Die is an American buddy cop action comedy film starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, in the fourth installment of the Bad Boys film series. The sequel to Bad Boys for Life, it is directed by Adil and Bilal, and written by Chris Bremner and Will Beal. Joe Pantoliano, Vanessa Hudgens, Alexander Ludwig, Paula Nunez, Jacob Scipio, and DJ Khaled reprised their roles from the previous film, with Tasha Smith taking over the role of Teresa Burnett from Teresa Randall, who previously played the character in the last three films. New cast members include Eric Dane, Lone Grufford, Ray Seahorn, Melanie Lee Bird, and Tiffany Haddish. The film follows Miami detectives Mike Lowry and Marcus Barnett trying to clear the name of their late captain, Conrad Howard, falsely accused of conspiracy. Bad Boys Ride or Die premiered at the Coca-Cola Arena in Dubai on May 22nd of this year and was released in the United States on June 7th by Sony Pictures Releasing. And to this point, the film has grossed over $6 million already at the box office. Now, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's based on 136 critic reviews, with an audience score of 97% based on over 100 verified ratings. It has a Metascore of 54 on Metacritic based on 41 critic reviews, with a user score of 8.8, and that's based on only 4 user ratings, so we'll see how that ends up in a week or so. And finally, it has a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb with just over 2,500 ratings. Again, we'll see where that ends up by the time this is all through. So let me start by saying that after seeing Bad Boys for Life a few years back, I myself was a little concerned when I heard there was going to be a fourth movie in this franchise. Mainly because I just think that both Will and Martin are getting a little too old to still be playing these characters in the way that they are. And what I mean by that is, running through the streets, shirts off, shooting in public places, things blowing up, jumping off of buildings, jumping out of moving cars, that kind of thing. Having said that, and of course, having seen Bad Boys Ride or Die, I can admit that the duo still works for now. I do think that, it's time to get a different opening for these films. At this point, I think we all understand that Mike drives like a maniac and that Marcus doesn't exactly like it. So I think the filmmakers need to be more creative with the opening scenes of these films, even though I understand that I guess it's become tradition to start these films out with Marcus driving super fast. With Mike, driving a really expensive sports car super duper fast and Marcus kind of freaking out. But at a certain point, you just kind of go, okay, we got it. At a certain point, I just think you got to try something new. And, it's a small thing, but it's a big thing, So do with that as you will. And here in this film, Mike's getting married. If you've seen the trailer, you probably have figured that out, whether you've gone to see this movie or not at this point, which I got to say, as a screenwriter, was the most predictable story beat in the entire film. And because there's so many movies at this point that these two have done together in this film series that they're running out of things for the characters to do. And so the only thing that's kind of left was for, Playboy Mike to kind of get married. So I'm like, okay, I get it. Now, what I'll admit was not as predictable is that I thought, even as I was sitting there watching the movie, I thought he was going to be marrying Rita. Just because of, the last film and kind of how that all went down. But I mean, it was a good fake out. I'm cool with it. And there's a lot made at the beginning of this film about Marcus and his health. And again, like I said, the film is running out of things for these characters to kind of go through at this point. And so, of course, Marcus, goes into cardiac arrest during the reception at Will's wedding and is rushed to the hospital. Now, I didn't really love this beat, because at this point, the movie is simply reusing beats from the previous film and switching the characters that they happen to. As you might remember, back in the last film when Megan and Reggie got married in Bad Boys for Life, without either of her brothers or her aunt in attendance, mind you. And, of course, Mike was shot by his son, Armando, and had to go to the hospital in the last film as well. So, essentially, they just changed out the characters and then switched the order of events. But, I mean, this is what happens when you make sequel after sequel. Like I said, eventually you run out of ideas. And despite that fact, I did think that the early beats of the film did set the character arcs up for the film fairly well, especially, Mike and Marcus. Now, I'm going to go on a small little rant here. And again, another small thing, but a big thing is that, I look at films like this and I say, as these films, there's stuff blowing up everywhere, car chases, people shooting it out on the streets, stuff like that. And you do kind of have to, suspend your disbelief at some of this stuff. But what I think does a good job at grounding these films are the little things that happen in between all the big stuff. And so, for example, in the first Bad Boy movie and in the second one, Marcus had 3 kids, and of course we know Marcus has a sister played by Gabrielle Union, Sid. And so for Marcus to go into cardiac arrest and none of his other children show up. None of his other children showed up when their sister got married in the last film, and neither did Sid. And I'm just like, I understand you might not have been able to get Gabrielle Union to come back for whatever reason, I don't know, right? But clearly you got no problem substituting actors. So you could have just substituted somebody in and had them play Sid. And even if you couldn't get the 2 kids who actually played Marcus's sons in the first and second movies, you could have just got 2 other grown men to come in. Because it's those little things that kind of, especially since Marcus is such a family man, when you're watching the movie, you're kind of looking like, gosh, like most of his family don't even show up for him. And so it's just kind of a weird situation there for me. Again, that's my rant. Just, a small thing, but a big thing. And, the reason why I say that is because this film leaned heavily on storylines from past films, most notably Bad Boys 2. But the film was also pretty formulaic from start to finish, and that makes these films fairly predictable. I can honestly say there wasn't anything that happened in this movie that you couldn't see coming from 10 miles away. So, these stories aren't really, top of the line when it comes to creativity. The good news for this movie is that the Bad Boy films have never really been movies that relied heavily on really good storytelling, or continuity for that matter, but I'll save that rant for another video. These movies have worked historically because Martin and Will have undeniable chemistry and comedic timing, and thus continue to be the very reasons why these films keep getting sequels. And even as they have started to kind of age out of the iconic roles they continue to reprise, the films, like I said, they still seem to work. Besides the pair everyone comes to see these movies for, it was interesting to have Captain Howard in this movie, posthumously. Like I said, despite having been shot and killed by Armando in the last film. And, of course, Tasha Smith playing the new Teresa. They basically did the old switcheroo like they did with Vivian Banks in The Fresh Prince, which was kind of funny. That's the first thing I thought of. When I saw her, I was just like, I'm surprised they didn't have Will, look in the camera and kind of do the shrug like, But but hey, look, you do what you got to do, right? I heard that she might not be in this movie a while back, and so I don't know. There was I heard some people saying that someone saw her in a wheelchair or something may have happened where she just wasn't going to be able to do it. So you do what you got to do. Now, McGrath is the new big bad in this film, and though I think I thought he was okay, but in the hierarchy of bad guys, I gotta say I would put him at the very, very bottom of Bad Boys, bad guys. I liked Captain Howard's daughter, the U.S. Marshal, being involved. Even though you knew precisely how that would play out at the end of the film, once you kind of saw the setup kind of be put in place, and you saw how she and Mike were kind of, even though she was at Mike's wedding, there was kind of like this situation because, of course, it's Mike's son who shot her dad, and so you kind of knew there was going to come a point in time, where she was going to have to, reconcile her feelings about that, and even, she said to Mike, when it all when they were talking about everything, that, hey, if I ever catch your son in these streets, I'm gonna put him down. So you kind of knew where that was gonna go. At some point in Act 3, she was gonna have to decide to kind of grill the beef up and eat it, and so there's that. It was also totally predictable that Dorn and Kelly were gonna be smashing. Like I saw that coming once I knew that both of them were still in the film, and especially when the third person from the old ammo unit wasn't going to be in the film. I'm like, oh, they're going to be a couple, and so we got that, and it was equally predictable that Lockwood was going to be dirty. Like, I mean, just the way my man was looking when you first met him, and as soon as you figured out that this was some kind of police officer conspiracy that had to do with military and government and stuff like that, I'm like, oh. Yeah, he's dirty. Dirty as the day is long. And of course, you knew that Marcus and Mike would end up clearing Captain Howard's name in the end. Now, what I will say was kind of a crunk surprise was the scene where McGrath sent his men to hurt Marcus and Mike's families. And, Reggie had to defend the home because look at here. When the bad guy showed up at Marcus's house, my man Reggie got busy. He got extra busy. I'm talking about, look, the whole theater went crazy because my man was on his real. Like, I mean, when you get to that scene, I'm telling you, it makes the whole movie turn up. To me, it was one of the best scenes in the entire movie. So I really, really liked that about the film. He went from like 0 to 100 like immediately, like no questions were asked. Like he was on his turn up, and like I said, that sequence really got the theater excited for sure. Now, I was also surprised that spoiler alert, but Mike let his son go at the end, after his son kind of helped him, track down his wife and Judy's daughter, Callie. I thought for sure Mike's son was going to be around for a while so that he and Mike could get to a place where they would end up being close. But, he put him on a boat and said, just go south and don't look back. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, little piece at the end of the film. I would be interested to see if we see him again because at this point, I'm expecting there to be another movie announced coming soon here, maybe within the next 6 months or so. There's going to be a Bad Boys 5, and I just, okay, at this point, what are you going to do? Now, overall, I'd give this film a 75% or 7.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. I thought for the most part this film worked. Even though I'm hearing a lot of people go, oh, this is the best Bad Boys movie in the entire franchise, let me stop you right there. It's not. Bad Boys 2 is the best movie in this franchise. And I would say that it's probably not all that close. And then after that, I would say it's Bad Boys 1 after that. And then we can kind of go back and forth about what we think about the last two films. Now, I do think that from a narrative standpoint, these movies are getting kind of close to jumping the shark into Fast and Furious territory. I mean, the idea that after all these years, all of a sudden, Mike and Marcus and Captain Howard, by extension, are all dirty cops. It was just a bit of a stretch. And I'm also not sure how much longer Will Smith and Martin Lawrence can be the run through the streets, shooting up public spaces kind of cops that seem to satisfy the urban audiences to the point where these movies keep getting made. At a certain point, they're going to have to retire and they're going to have to make room for, I guess, new bad boys, which at some point I think would make these movies not be as good. Because, like I said, these movies are made because Martin and Will are so good together. And, you know, I tell people Bad Boys is kind of the next iteration of, say, like a Beverly Hills Cop type of movie, you know, with Eddie Murphy. And so, nevertheless, you know, I think this film will be a fairly fun time for those of us who are fans of Will Smith or Martin Lawrence or both. And, you know, who don't mind spending a couple of hours watching a pair of Asian gunslingers shoot it out, like I said, in public places, you know, while telling a few rehashed jokes, you know, jokes we heard before and that kind of thing. You know, I had fun with this film. But deep down in my heart, if I'm being completely honest, you know, for the sake of this film franchise and its storytelling legacy, hear what I said, its storytelling legacy, I really do hope that Bad Boys Ride or Die is Marcus and Mike's last ride. But what do you guys think? Have you seen Bad Boys Ride or Die yet? If you have, did you like it? Or do you think it's time that Will and Martin moved on? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go and check out themaskscreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.